Hello and welcome to it. You're watching #Africa. I'm Tutuzile Ramela. African countries have reacted swiftly to South Africa's listeria crisis. Over 180 people died from contaminated food. Zimbabwe and Zambia have banned imports of South African processed meat, dairy products, vegetables and fruit. Mozambique, Kenya and Namibia also halted imports of the processed meat items. Botswana is recalling them. Malawi, meanwhile, has stepped up screening of South African food imports. Sierra Leoneans voted in a general election on Wednesday to choose a new president. Outgoing President Ernest Bai Koroma has increasingly relied on China for infrastructure. Now, this has raised concern that Beijing wants to keep his party in power. The opposition SLPP have retained the same candidate, Julius Maada Bio, who lost to Koroma in 2012. And U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson was on a tour of African countries this week. He touched down in Ethiopia before heading for Djibouti, Kenya, and then to the West African nations of Chad and Nigeria. Dealing with international terrorism was high on his agenda, but he also had harsh words for China, accusing it of forcing debt on African countries.
We partner with African countries by incentivizing good governance to meet long-term security and development goals. This stands in stark contrast to China's approach, which encourages dependency, using opaque contracts, predatory loan practices, and corrupt deals that mire nations in debt and undercut their sovereignty, denying them their long-term self-sustaining growth.
Now, last week, the Mthwakazi movement in Zimbabwe tried to coronate a king for Zimbabwe's Ndebele people, but this was thwarted by the Zimbabwean government. To explain the issue now, I'm joined in studio by Mbonisi Gumbo of the Mthwakazi Republic Party. Thank you so much for coming on to the program. Perhaps let's start with a quick history lesson on the Mthwakazi nation.
The Mthwakazi nation is a nation that was built by King Mthwakazi in the 1980s, 1800s, and it has existed since then until 1893, when the white colonialists colonized Ndebele land, and from that time to date, we have not had this state revived. And in 1923. The white people, the colonialists then, they decided to merge Mashonaland and Ndebele land to make one country, Rhodesia, and which has existed until it was changed to be Zimbabwe, what it is today. From that time to date, the people of Ndebele land have never tasted their freedom, and that is why now we are saying we now want our self-determination.
So you're looking to break away from Zimbabwe?
Not necessarily to break away, but to restore our state to where it was before 1893, or we can say before 1923. Yes.
How much success do you think you will enjoy where that is concerned? I mean, already the government refused to coronate the king. So how do you think this will be possible? Have you engaged the government also?
We were actually expecting that the government won't easily accept some of those things, but we are making all efforts that we can peaceful to achieve what we are demanding now. And part of the process is to have our king and also to contest the elections, because eventually we want to have a referendum, because we have never been asked as the people of Ndebele land whether we want to be part of Zimbabwe or not. So we believe that at a point in time we need to have a referendum so that we are allowed to choose whether to be within Zimbabwe or to have our own state.
Your relationship with other political parties in the country, namely the MDC, can you just talk us through that?
Thank you. As far as we are concerned, the MDC and the ZANU-PF, they are all the same. They are not different when it comes to the issues of Ndebele land. They all have the same agenda of suppressing the people of Ndebele. Like, for example, you would know that it is much easier for someone from Ndebele to get a job here in South Africa than to get it in Zimbabwe. Those are part of the concerns that we have, because our people in Ndebele, and they are not recognized as first-class citizens like their Shona counterparts.
Are you saying there's a divide between tribal lines in Zimbabwe?
Yes, definitely. Because if you look at it, you'll know that the Kukurawundi genocide that took place, that has not been resolved until now, that took place in 1983 to 87, was actually tribal. And it affected the people of Ndebele and parts of the Mthwakazi, exactly where Mthwakazi borders are. That is, those are the people that were affected by that Kukurawundi genocide. And the government of the day has refused to recognize the Kukurawundi genocide and to apologize to date. And there has not been any development in as far as infrastructure is concerned.
Thank you very much for coming on to the program to talk to us. That was Mthwakazi Republic Party spokesperson Mbonisi Gumbo. Here's what's coming up after the break. Somalia is facing an uncertain future as AU security forces leave. We'll bring you details of that and more after this. Welcome back. Leaders from troop-contributing countries to the African Union mission in Somalia are urging the United Nations to reconsider a decision to withdraw forces from the Horn of Africa. A drawdown of AMISOM troops in Somalia has started, and local Somali forces are expected to take over. But there is concern whether or not they will manage. This follows a transitional plan meeting in Uganda's capital of Kampala, also attended by heads of diplomatic missions and the AU. ENCA's Isabel Nakira reports.
Ideas have been shared and a plan mooted. Countries contributing troops to Somalia want the UN to rethink plans to have the peacekeeping mission in Somalia close. They are worried that their efforts to bring peace to Somalia may not be realized soon.
Timeframes and troop levels under UN Security Council Resolution 2372 are not realistic and would lead to a reversal of the gains made by AMISOM.
A reduction in the size of the peacekeeping force has started. It's now down to 21,000 from 22,000 amid frequent attacks by the Al-Shabaab militants. And there are fears that the local Somali forces may not manage to fight Al-Shabaab alone. The Kampala summit has agreed that ample time should be given to the Somali government to train its forces.
But I believe if we continue to collaborate with the help of EU and international community to continue funding this operation, we will be able to defeat Al-Shabaab in a very short order.
The peacekeeping mission in Somalia has lasted over a decade, but has faced major funding issues. The summit in Kampala is requesting the EU to continue funding the mission to be able to defeat the Al-Shabaab. While progress made to pacify Somalia is significant, defeating the militant group Al-Shabaab remains a challenge, and countries contributing troops say to realize total peace, their continued stay in Somalia is vital. Isabel Nakira in Kampala.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has met his Angolan counterpart, João Lourenço, to strengthen regional cooperation. The two countries are the largest economies and military powers in southern Africa. Bilateral relations were strengthened last November when President Lourenço paid his first state visit to South Africa. Ramaphosa wants to increase business ties.
Angola and South Africa are going to get into an era now of taking real meaningful steps to work together around issues like tourism, energy, infrastructure development, and broad investments and power and all those sectors of our economy are areas that we're going to target. Agriculture as well, mining as well. So all in all, between South Africa and Angola, there are a lot of opportunities that we want to embark on.
A quick look now at what's been happening on social media. Listeriosis was on everyone's lips this week. The bacteria outbreak killed over 180 people in South Africa. Government ordered a recall of some products, including polony. Namibia, Mozambique, Malawi, Botswana, and Zambia followed suit, ordering recalls and suspending imports. Social media users mocked Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari for offering to help Ghana fight corruption. Buhari committed to work with Ghana to tackle corruption. He was speaking at Ghana's Independence Day celebrations. Many are asking how he can think of fighting corruption when he himself is corrupt. And women across the continent celebrated International Women's Day on the 8th of March, embracing their ethnicity and uniqueness. Social media posts commended women for being pioneers in industries like agriculture and ICT, among others. In her shoes is a simple message by Ugandan police officers as they marched down the streets of Ndebele to stop violence against women.
Following a spate of unresolved murders of young women in the area, police officers are taking a stand.
Maybe they're used to female only. This is the problem with us, the men. We don't normally carry children.
More than 20 corpses have been found since May last year, putting pressure on police.
I'm carrying a baby and a pot, and other officers are carrying firewood and babies. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of women. Recently, 23 young ladies were killed around this area, so we chose this area and asked the questions, why are the criminals targeting women?
Some residents are not convinced. They say in some instances the police have been the violators and not the protectors.
The attitudes that we have tend also to permeate through the police. Ladies were being murdered. Reasons of the murders were being given. It is like they were throwing the blame to the victims. They're saying they caused these incidents to themselves. This government prides itself for bringing security, for bringing about women emancipation. But at the same time, when these ladies were being murdered, the government didn't even talk about it.
Government data cites that in some instances, domestic violence is justified under certain circumstances. Local women's rights groups are calling for an end to this.
Wife beating, battering, early marriage, inheritance of widows, grabbing their property, disinheriting them. All that points to violation of women's rights. And those are still happening in this country in the name of culture.
But Ugandan police say they are hell-bent on changing the narrative, people's perception of a man in society.
And that's it from us for now. Do stay tuned to ENCA for all the latest news. Take care and goodbye.